You're watching Real Simple News with Coffee on Sunday, July 26th. I am your host, Cale McCullough, and in this morning's top news article, it's from the BBC. It says, how a Chinese agent used LinkedIn to hunt for targets. And if you're unfamiliar, I've been talking about graduate students tampering with Wikipedia in order to push a pro-Beijing, anti-racist agenda and pro-Marxist agenda. And I discovered this because I got banned from Wikipedia for calling out boogeyman propaganda. And then I started researching into it, and I had discovered that grad students have been tampering. The influence had been coming from the university. So this article says his doctorate research was about Chinese foreign policy, and he was about to discover firsthand about how the rising superpower seeks to attain influence. I hate it when they start with stuff like this. Like, can't you just tell me what the thing's about, please? After his presentation, Jun Wei, also known as Dixon, was, according to the U.S. court documents, the grammar in this sucks. Right off the bat, I'm sorry. This is horrible grammar. He was approached by several people who said they worked for Chinese think tanks. They said they wanted to pay him to provide, quote, political reports and information, double unquote, I guess. See, their grammar is so bad they use double quotes here. They would later specify exactly what they wanted, double quote scuttlebutt and double quote rumors and insider knowledge. He soon realized they were Chinese intelligence agents. Everybody from China who is not against the Chinese government is a Chinese asset. Just to be very clear. So they remained in contact with them. A sworn statement said he was asked to focus on countries in Southeast Asia, but later his interest turned to the U.S. government, which is funny because the guy who banned me from Wikipedia was also editing the Wikipedia page about stereotypes of Southeast Asians, which is I'm just going to say that it's a coincidence. Reading on in the article, it says, that was how Dixon Yu set off a path to become a Chinese agent, one who would end up using the professional knowledge of the website LinkedIn. The grammar is just so horrible. Like, how much blah, 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 blathering nonsense do you have to get before you finally come to it and say Wikipedia? A fake consulting company, and cover as a curious academic to lure in American targets. 5 years later, on Friday, amid deep tensions between U.S. and China and determined crackdown from Washington's Beijing spies, Yeo pled guilty in a U.S. court for being an illegal agent of a foreign power, which they were supposed to put at the top of the article. Alumni at Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew School for Public Policy, LKY SPP, which translates into some of Asia's top civil which trains some of Asia's top civil servants and government officials, were left shocked by the news that their former peer had confessed to being a Chinese agent. I'm absolutely not shocked. In fact, I'm more shocked that we kind of just assumed that this wasn't going to happen, because this is the thing. This is the reason why the left is so horrible. Like, people think that Nazis were the opposite of a liberal, and that they weren't trying to make the world a better place. They were just trying to be bad people. They started out with the intentions of, we're going to take the title of one of the most horrible group of people of all time. No, that's not actually the way it happened. No, it started out that they thought that the world was going to evolve from feudalism to capitalism. And the 19th century was supposed to be the century of capitalism. And then in the 20th century, it was going to be the century of socialism, where it was the ownership model was going to be socially owned. And then there was two competing ideologies in here. There was communism and there was Nazism. And we don't have to... Apparently, we do have to go out and talk about how bad communism and Nazism both are, because people on the left today they think that they believe in what is called cultural Marxism. And so they think that communism didn't fail because the ideology itself is destined to fail because of just structurally the system of socialism just doesn't work. They say that it was the culture that failed, and so that we have to change the culture. And this is that resurgence of Marxist beliefs that we're seeing right now in the Black Lives Matter movement that is absolutely just terrifying. So what else does this say? It says, quote, "He had been a very active student in class. I always viewed him as a very intelligent person," said one of the former postgraduate students who did not wish to be named. She said he often talked about social inequality and that his family struggled financially when he was a child. She said he found it difficult to reconcile the person she knew with his guilty plea. And so you have to notice the social inequality part. So this is why the Nazis were actually fighting for social equality. It's counterintuitive. Because you're like, okay, Nazis are just horrible people, which they are. But they were trying to make the world a better place. They thought the Jews were in control of the world, and they had to make a system where they could compete, because Marxism is a failure because people will just bias it towards their in-group, and it'll make it so one group comes up while everybody else comes down. They'll advocate for socialism while they refuse to share, which is why they hated the Jews so much. And that's what they were fighting for, to make the world a more equal place. That's why they were Nazis. It was an equality movement. And people are like, oh no, but they weren't feminist. Like, oh really? Okay, so first off, equality for all people is not exclusive of anti-feminism. They're not mutually exclusive of each other, because it is a fact that most affluent people come from a two-parent household. That's a fact. It's a fact that when you have one parent who has more time to put into you, to raise you and to teach you, and that if they have more resources, that you will be better off. I know this sounds completely obvious, but apparently you have to say these things. So they thought once they got rid of all of their enemies, then, speaking about the Nazis, sorry. Once they got rid of their enemies, that then the world would then be a better place. This is the mindset of people that commit atrocities. This is what goes on in a tyrant's head. They say everybody else is a tyrant except for me. What else does this article say? A former member of staff at the institution painted a very different picture, saying Yuo seemed to have an inflated sense of his own importance, a characteristic of people who fight for social justice. They believe they are the white knight and they are important, more important than other people, and that because they are the white knight, this justifies everything that they do. Continuing the article, it says Yuo's PhD supervisor had been Yongjing, a high-profile Chinese American professor who was expelled from Singapore in 2017 for being an agent of an influence of a foreign country. That was not identified. Hong Jin also denied those allegations. After leaving Singapore, he first worked in Washington, D.C., and now Beijing. According to the court documents released with Yeo's guilty plea, which I looked at it earlier today, this happened, the guilty plea came down 2 days ago. The student met his Chinese handlers on dozens of occasions in different locations in China. During one meeting, he was asked to specifically obtain information about the U.S. Department of Commerce, artificial intelligence, and Sino-U.S. trade war. Bilar Arai Sukan, a former permanent secretary of Singapore's foreign ministry, said he had, quote, no doubt that Dickinson knew he was working for Chinese intelligence services, end quote. He was not, he said, an unwitting, useful fool. Yeo made his critical contacts using LinkedIn, the job and careers network site used by more than 700 million people. Platform is described only as a professional working networks website. In the court documents, it was confirmed to the Washington Post. Former government and military employees and contractors are not shy about publicly posting details of their work histories on the website in order to obtain lucrative jobs in the private sector. And this is why the Chinese are so active. It's because it is a gold mine of information for espionage purposes. Please note, I was the person who actually discovered that. What does this say? It says, here's what the LinkedIn profile of Dixon Yeo says. It says, China and ASPEAN political risk analysis, still bringing North America with Beijing, Tokyo, and Southeast Asia. He had 500 plus connections. This presents a potential gold mine to foreign intelligence agencies, just like Wikipedia. All you got to do to get information on Wikipedia about stuff that you want, if it's not on Wikipedia, is to start the Wikipedia page and then to put up links to that Wikipedia places where people that you want to get the information from might see. In 2018, U.S. counterintelligence chief William Evanina warned of a, quote, super aggressive, end quote, action by Beijing on the Microsoft-owned platform, which is one of the few Western social sites not blocked in China. Kevin Malloy, a former CIA officer jailed for 20 years last May for disclosing military secrets to a Chinese agent, was first targeted on LinkedIn. In 2017, Germany's intelligence agency and Chinese agents had used LinkedIn to target at least 10,000 Germans. LinkedIn has not responded to the request for comment by the story, but has previously said it takes a range of measures to stop nefarious activity. I don't think there's any way that you could actually stop this kind of activity. Because I've been looking into it. I'm writing a tool called WikiSpy to monitor Wikipedia for tampering by agents of a foreign power or hostile agents and political bias. And so it's one of those things where it's like all of the bias and the corruption is not just coming from China, it's also coming from America too. So it's kind of hard to spot that kind of behavior when it's a mix of domestic and foreign stuff. It says some of the targets that Yeo found by trawling through LinkedIn were commissioned to write reports for his consultancy, which had the same name as already prominent firm. These were then sent to his Chinese contacts. One of the individuals he contacted worked for the U.S. Air Force's F-35 fighter jet program and admitted he had money problems. Another was a U.S. Army officer assigned to the Pentagon who was paid at least $2,000 to write a report of how the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iran would impact China. In finding such contacts, Yeo would be based in Washington, D.C. for part of 2019, was aided by an invisible ally, the LinkedIn algorithm. Each time Yeo looked at someone's profile, it would suggest a new slate of contacts with similar experience that he might be interested in. Yeo described it as relentless. According to the court documents, his handlers advised him to ask targets if they were dissatisfied with work or having financial troubles. William Nigel, an American former student at the Lee Kuan Yew School, was arrested at a protest in Vietnam in 2018 and later deported, said a Facebook post on Saturday that Yeo had tried to contact him multiple times after he was released from prison, and his case made headlines around the world. 2018, Yeo also posted fake online job ads for his consulting company. He told investigators he received more than 400 CVs, with 90% of them coming from the U.S. military, government, and personnel and with security clearances. Some of them passed to his Chinese handlers. Wow. Woo! Talk about a gold mine. The use of LinkedIn is brazen, but not surprising, said Matthew Brazil, the co-author of Chinese Communist Espionage, an intelligence primer. Quote, I think lots of worldwide intelligence agencies probably use it to seek out sources of information, end quote, he said. Quote, because it's been everybody's interest who's on LinkedIn to put their whole career and there for everybody to see. It's an unusually valuable tool in that regard. He said his commissioning consultant reports is a way for agents to get, quote, a hook, end quote, into potentially viable sources who might later be convinced to supply classified information. It's a modern version of classic tradecraft, really. See, that's what clued me in that the Chinese were doing spy work on Wikipedia, was when I looked through the persons that banned me from Wikipedia's list of contributions. He had changed on the killing of George Floyd page, he had inputted in that the Officer Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck and on his back, and that he had killed George Floyd. And they had gone through and edited the Nazism page to make it look like Nazism was not socialism, which is a lie, because socialism means social ownership. That's what socialism means, social ownership, as opposed to communism, which is community ownership. Then I had noticed that they were inputting in things about various individuals. I can't remember who, couldn't tell you. And it just looked, I was like, this dude's doing spy work. This person had been on Wikipedia. It looked like 24 hours a day. They were doing Wikipedia admin work, what looked like 7 days a week. It definitely was 24 hours a day. I didn't check to see if it was every day, but there was obviously, this dude was on meth. He had dementia and he didn't sleep. He had some rare condition that made it so he doesn't sleep, or there was multiple people using the account, or his account had been hacked, or he just had a bot on the account. But it was a very suspicious thing. So what does it say? Does it say anything more? Singapore, a multicultural society of 5.8 million, where ethnic Chinese make up a majority of the population, has long enjoyed close links to the United States, which uses its air and naval bases, but also sought to and maintain positive relations with China. Mr. Kauzikan also said he does not believe the spying case, the first known to involve a Singaporean, would hurt the country's reputation with the American government, but he feared that Singapore could face greater suspicion in American society. On Sunday, Singapore's Ministry of Home Affairs said investigations had not revealed any direct threats to the country's security stemming from the case. LKYSPP's Dean Danny Quall wrote in an email to facility and students quoted by the Straits Times newspaper that no facility or students at our school are known to be involved with the Yeo case. A spokesperson for the school told BBC that Yeo had been granted leave from absence from his PhD in 2019, and his candidature has now been terminated. Dixon Yeo does not appear to have gone as far as his contacts as his handlers would have liked, but in November 2019, he traveled to the U.S. with instructions to turn the Army officer into a permanent conduit of information. His signed statement says he was arrested before he could ask. This is obviously a typo.
Woo! Boy, that one was long, huh? Oops. Spilling coffee already. It happens. So, this next story's got more lies from the lame stream media. This particular set of lies here is going to come from the New York Post. It came from a number of sources. This one story is from the New York Post. It says couple wears swastika mask at a Walmart in Minnesota. There's, quote, mass Nazis, and then there's these two jerks. Yeah, they're not biased. A man and a woman in Minnesota marched through a Marshall Walmart donning red masks adorned with giant swastikas. Video shows if you vote for Biden, you're going to be living in Nazi Germany. That's what it's going to be like, she says in the video. So let's watch for ourselves.
You're sick. Yeah, you're sick. You have an illness. You can't be American and wear that mask. You cannot. We literally had a war about this. I killed Nazis. My grandpa killed them.
You know, I'm going to have to stop him right here. I'm going to have to call him out on this whole we kill Nazis in America thing. I mean, I understand that you want to feel tough. Oh, I'm big. But the fact is that you have never fought for our country. You have never been shot for our country. You've probably also, too, never actually met a Nazi in your life. And if you did actually have to get into a fight with a Nazi, you'd probably chicken out. So, yes, I used to also, too, say the same thing of we kill Nazis around here. But let's be real. This is a call to action. It is not legal for you to endorse people to murder Nazis. As much as you hate Nazis, if you murder a Nazi, it makes you no better than a Nazi.
You're wearing a swastika.
If you vote for Biden, you're going to be in Nazi Germany. That's what it's going to be like.
You're sick.
You're literally wearing a Nazi flag right now.
Yeah.
Sounds like such a coward.
In America.
You're wearing a Nazi flag right now.
We literally had a fucking war about this. The Nazis lost.
For good reason.
Please, don't wear those masks. You cannot call yourself an American.
Now, what they're trying to do here is they're trying to make a point that the left
Turn on the
is
Fox News and wake up.
behaving like Nazis.
Take off this mask right now.
That mask is bullshit. Fuck you.
It's so incredibly offensive. You're not an American if you wear that mask. We literally had a war about this. We literally had a war about this.
Now, I'm going to say their point is ill-made. I think it's backfire because the golden rule is that if you have to explain the justification for why you did it, chances are it's going to backfire in your face. I know this from personal experience because I have seen it blow up on me a majority of the times, but people are trying to say that Republicans are Nazis. And there's this crazy notion that Republicans are racist. And this is just absolutely not true. The Democrats were the ones that owned slaves, started the KKK, opposed women's suffrage, and passed the 1994 crime bill that created the prison industrial complex and caused all of the police brutality. So you can't say that the Republicans are racist. The reason why they're saying this is because they don't understand why the Republicans think the way they do. I also, too, used to think Republicans were racist back when I was a brainwashed radical feminist. I thought that women were underpaid and that there was these misogynists that were mistreating the women, and that I was so much better of a man than those other dudes. I was the white knight. I was the one that was going to come and save the damsel in distress from the big, bad, imaginary, misogynistic pig boogeyman from the Southern Poverty Law Center and MSNBC, the one that beats, rapes, and locks up women, prevents them from voting, working, going to school, and acting like a man. And I thought that it was the Republicans because they were conservative and because they wanted a traditional conservative lifestyle, that this meant that they acted like the people did in the past, and that this meant that they were the Nazis, and that we were at risk of fascism taking over the United States. And what I did not realize was that that's the slippery slope mentality that leads you into Nazism, because Nazis did not start out going down the slippery slope intending to be one of the world's most notorious pieces of shit in the entire history of humankind. But this is the long road to authoritarianism, or shall I say the short road to authoritarianism, is that it always ends up being the person who ends up brutalizing you is the person who ends up being pissed off. And why are they pissed off? They're pissed off because stuff changed. This is why the Republicans think this way. It's because nobody can argue. No one can argue World War II would never have happened had the Nazis not overthrown the German Socialist Democratic Party. Yes, of course. Had they not overthrown the government, World War II never would have happened. Why did World War II happen? Because the government had been overthrown. This is why they were Nazis. It functionally had nothing to do with the fact that they hated Jews or inherently wrong with the idea of competing in order to have a system that works, right? Because that's the reason why they were Nazis is because Marxism's a failure, communism's a failure, because groups will bias it towards their in-group. It's always going to happen. In Germany, it was the Jews who advocated for socialism, and then they didn't want to share. They only shared with the other Jews, and that's why the Holocaust happened. Didn't happen because of other reasons. It happened because there was a group of people that say, no, we'll have socialism, but I'm not going to share. So their solution was, okay, we're all going to compete. So Nazism was supposed to be a more evolved version of socialism. And socialism was supposed to be the government form that was an evolution upon capitalism that was supposed to be better. But the inherent problem with these structures and why they're all authoritarian structures are bad is that you have to kill people to defend them. So once you got, this goes back to the cultural Marxism thing. So there's a concept in Marxism called dialectic materialism. And so this is the class struggle between the poor people and the rich people. And it's sorry, forgot to turn the light on. So dialectic materialism states that the poor people are going to have to rise up and take over the bourgeoisie class of people. These are the middle class people. Okay, so it doesn't make sense as to what you know, when I first got into studying philosophy and learned about the bourgeoisie, I did not like the bourgeoisie and how they just took things for granted. But now that, see, I think people just don't understand how the Nazis turned into such psycho killers. Is they had an enemy that they hated. I think if you understood why they were psycho killers, you would not be a Democrat. They had an enemy that the enemy was capitalism, and there was groups of people that were holding them back, that were preventing them from their socialist utopia. And they had to eliminate all of these enemies in order to create their socialist utopia, because the people would never go along with it. This is functionally why all of these authoritarian systems are never going to work, because in order to actually maintain it, you have to kill people in order to maintain it. And it's not very efficient system. It doesn't make people very happy on the bottom. So the left right now is trying to paint the right as Nazis because they think, oh, left, right, that means that you're a left. That means that that's the right side of the equality, and that the right, these are the people that are the bad people that are trying to make this unequal world, and they are racist white people. And this is completely lunatic nonsense. None of this makes any sort of sense. This is how people start to get violent. They think, I'm being oppressed. There's these other people that have all of this stuff that I don't have, and I don't have it because they're racist and they were born with it. And because they were born with it, they don't deserve it. And the only way that I'm actually going to be able to take it from him is if I kill them. This is fundamentally why the Nazis started killing people. It's the same thing the left is doing right now with Trump supporters. They're getting so angry at Trump supporters that they want to kill them. Then once you start wanting to kill people, and once you see some public executions, then they start turning into a bloodthirsty savage, and then it goes very steeply down the slippery slope into genocidal maniac lands. So what else does this thing say? It says a man and woman in Minnesota marched through a Marshall Walmart donning red masks adorned with a giant swastika. Video shows. I personally would be wearing a mask that says this is a Democrat mind control device. Quote, if you vote for Biden, you're going to be living in Nazi Germany. That's what it's going to be like. The woman says in a video posted on Facebook by shopper Rahala Millar. So basically, this first line says there's masked Nazis, and then there's these two jerks. In what world does wearing a mask to make a political statement because people hate it, what is that? How does that make you a jerk? Is it the jerks, the people who flipped out on the people because they didn't want to actually listen to why they were wearing the masks? Right? Because if you listen to why they were wearing the swastika, you might actually too agree that we are going into the slippery slope to authoritarianism, where the Black Lives Matter rioters and looters hate Trump supporters so much they're willing to kill and torture them. And I've covered this in a previous episode of Real Simple News. It was one of the front stories. Black Lives Matter does torture Trump supporters. They literally torture, like physical pain torture, Trump supporters. It's not a lie. It's not an over-exaggeration. They hate Donald Trump so bad, they're willing to behave like a Nazi. And so I'm not sure exactly why this is news. This is in the New York Post and this was in Minnesota. But the reason why it's in the news is because it's gone viral. It's not because it's actually newsworthy. This is the thing that you need to start understanding, and you need to, whenever you see these fake news stories, you need to recognize that why they're doing it is because it's viral. Because when they put stories out like this, they know they'll get a viral boost in the people who are watching their news stories, and then they can start getting away with a lot of bullshit nonsense. So this next story from the Daily Mail, or as I like to call it, the Daily Fake Mail, says coronavirus deaths in UK hospitals rise by 10, the second lowest Sunday increase. There were 9 more fatalities in England, 1 Wales, 1 in Scotland, and none for a 10th day in a row in Northern Ireland. Often this does not update its total on a weekend. So one of the tactics that these news companies give you to increase the amount of clicks that they get is in the title. They only tell you a portion of the information. If you could express the entire news article in just one sentence, they're probably not going to get you to click on the article because you just got the whole news story. But they have to get you to watch the ads. So when you read this, 14 more corona deaths, taking total of 245,000 in lowest Sunday rise since lockdown began. So what are they trying to say? This is what you have to start when you're looking for fake news and you want to spot fake news. You need to look at the title and you need to ask yourself, what are these people trying to say? It's trying to say, oh, there's more deaths. There's a huge number of deaths. But then it's the lowest Sunday rise since lockdown began. Because if it just says, oh, coronavirus is going away, then you wouldn't click on it. So let's look at this. These are important to understand. If you don't know what a Gaussian curve is, you got to know what a Gaussian curve is. It's this thing in mathematics. If you don't know what it is, it's called the bell curve. Wow, where's the bell curve? So you got these things, and you see how this green one over here, you got a green curve over here. Okay. That's what it is. So it's this variance. Because it's one-dimensional. If it was two-dimensional, it would be a covariance. So what is the next? Oops. So this curve is... So the way that the coronavirus transmits to other people, always the last step on your infection vector is going to be that you spread it around your house. Because this is every single time somebody gets infected, unless they're homeless, which is very small portion of people, every single time they're going to go to a house, and that house is going to have lots of whatever they got infected with floating around the air, if it's respiratory transmitted. So most people get COVID at their house. The UK in particular locked down very hard. Like, their lockdown was harsh. So they had 45,000 deaths. So what they're trying to say in this news article is, oh, the coronavirus thing is getting over. We're seeing the end of it. Now we know how many people died. And then it was 45,000. So let's look at the population. $63 million people. All right. This is why this show is awesome, because I actually look at the numbers. So we had 45,000. Then we go and we look up their population. And we look up. So approximately 0.072% of their population died from COVID. So let's remember that one. Oh, wait a minute. We're at 146,934. Wait. Now, population of U.S. Oops. Wrong one. Oh, look at that. Only 0.045% of our population died from COVID. What was that? Shoot. Oops. Sorry. Well, let me, I wish you could copy and paste multiple things. Sorry. But I'm just trying to copy and paste something here, because this thing wouldn't work. Don't ask me why. This thing won't. It's supposed to be able to click something. Damn you. So the difference there was, 0.02777%. And so in the United States, that would have been, we're going to divide by 100 and then multiply by the population again. That would have been almost, that would have been like 90,000 extra deaths in the United States. So my point is, the UK locked down harshly. They did a very, very harsh lockdown. They forced people to stay indoors. And what happened? A significantly higher portion of people died. In the United States, that would have been if 140,000 people died. Let's go back to COVIDNet USA. Hold on. I forgot what point I was just about to try to make. So my point here is that because the last leg of the infection before you go spread it to give it to somebody else is you spread it around your house. This means wearing a mask in public is not going to be very effective at preventing you from getting COVID. The only thing that it's going to do, literally the only thing that it is going to do is it's going to take this bell curve here, this Gaussian curve, it's going to stretch the time period out. You go from here, but you don't actually affect the area under the curve. I'm an engineer. I noticed that one. I'm like, wait a minute. All y'all are doing is stretching the graph, the time period out, because you can't actually, the disease has an exponential multiplier. When you get sick, you're going to spread it around to like 3 people. I don't know the exact number. It's a little bit over 3 from what I heard. This is a fact. This is not going to change. The only thing that you are going to change is the time period between when you infected 3 people after you got COVID. So we could lock everything down to try to slow this down, to maybe try to save a couple of lives, but we can see in the United... Oh, yeah. That's what I was going to do over here, is we have this value. No, we want to look at... I want to take this off, and then 146,934. And then it's 146,934 divided by this. That's over twice. If we had used the same if we had used the same policies that the UK did, we would possibly see twice the number of COVID deaths. That's what we just showed from this math. What does that mean? This means the number of people that died. Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. No. That was the wrong copy paste. It would have been 60% more people that died. Here's the number. Apologize about that. I caught myself there. I'm decent with math. I did write the world's fastest number printing algorithm. So I have some credentials when it comes to math. So this is why these math things are bullshit, is because when you try to play God, chances are you're going to belly flop. It's true. You try to play God, chances are it's going to have an unforeseen consequence, and it's going to do the opposite of what you're trying to do. This is why all of these crazy wingnuts on the left are wrong to do what they do. So let's see. Let's go. This next article from New York Post says protesters vandalize police union building in Baltimore. A building for a Baltimore police union was vandalized as demonstrators spent the weekend marching against radical injustice and solidarity with protesters in Portland, Oregon. People within a group of nearly 100 demonstrators spray painted the Fraternal Order of Police Baltimore City Lodge Building 3, or Lodge 3 building, and sidewalks on Saturday night with anti-police messages, because apparently these people have never looked up the definition of a hate group. So like a hate group is a group of people, you always see that whenever it pops up, the Southern Poverty Law Center and their hate map and why you should donate. Look, hey, look. The hate crime level here is at a 1. Where does it show the hate crime level? This is all boogeyman propaganda. They're just trying to I understand neo-Nazis are kind of like fucked up, and some of them engage in gang violence and stuff. None of them have ever done any atrocities on the level of the Nazis. All of their atrocities have been on the level of below the level of black people in the United States. African Americans are some of the most brutal when it comes to violent crimes. They are. Like, they have fun with it. So the hate crime level is 1. And so they're out protesting because we're at the lowest levels. And none of them want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the ratio of 38 black African Americans. It's more proper to say African Americans than black, because these problems don't happen to people from Africa. It only happens to the African Americans. The African American immigrants are actually one of the highest paid groups of immigrants in the. They are the highest paid group of immigrants in the country, and that is beating Asians. Asians are the highest paid group in America. But a hate group is a group or a social group that advocates, practices hatred, hostility, and violence towards members of some sort of group that we can say is a group. It says race, ethnicity, nation, religion, gender, identity, sexual orientation. It's a group of people. It does not matter whether or not you're discriminating based upon whether or not that group of people is gay or whether or not they're anti-feminist or feminist. If you hate anti-feminist and you preach hatred towards anti-feminist, you are part of a hate group. If you use hostility, if your group of people is being hostile towards that group of people and is preaching violence, advocating violence towards that group, you are a hate group. It does not make you not a hate group if you're a leftist. In fact, throughout history, leftists have been some of the biggest, most violent hate groups in history. Yes, remember, the leftist means that you're for equality, right? And so why did the communists do all of the insanely brutal things that they did? Is it because they just started out deciding, I'm going to be a genocidal maniac and just kill people and make everybody hate me? I'm going to be a vile, disgusting monster, right? No, that's not how it started. No. It started with them wanting to make the world a better place. And then there was a group of people and they hated them. And then they started killing them. And then it turned into a genocide. That's how genocides happen. They start out with people killing each other. I mean, I know this sounds like revolutionary, right? But what are these? Yeah, there's not too much else to say here. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to get more articles in here. I'm staring at the clock and we only have like 5 minutes here. Next article from BBC News. Garrett Foster, police investigate shooting at Austin Black Lives Matter protest. And this is some sloppy journalism. Didn't really this Garrett Foster was pushing his fiance's wheelchair when he was shot dead by someone in a car. That hardly sounds anything like the actual article. This is slop. You're supposed to put something that makes them want to read it. It says Garrett Foster was pushing his fiance wheelchair at the protest when a car drove into the crowd. His mother, Sheila Foster, told U.S. media, do you really have to put that in there? The grammar in the BBC is horrible. Absolutely. For the country that came up with the English language, their English sucks. And they got funny teeth. Messing with you. Says, as demonstrators approached the car, someone inside the vehicle opened fire on the group. Mr. Foster was taken to a hospital, but was pronounced dead shortly after. Police have arrested a suspect. So this article's so sloppy. I'm just going to have to cut him off. So what happened was the guy was open carrying. He definitely probably he was not one of the bad protesters. He was one of the conservatives that was there to guard the place. And so this somebody drove into the crowd because they didn't want to be detained because they're stopping cars. I think they need to stop cars. They do. Or they need to stop stopping cars. Sorry. I think the police needs to crack down on them stopping cars. I think that they have gone completely overboard. They're unlawfully detaining people. It's illegal. That's not a peace. When you stop other people in the middle of traffic, you prevent them from moving down the sidewalk. That's not peaceful. That is absolutely 100% not peaceful. So the guy with the gun that got killed, he came up whenever this started happening, and then the guy in the car had a gun and shot him. So this is a warning for anyone who is going to be a patriot at one of these protests. You have to be prepared to use your weapon. You can't just go there open carrying your weapon, not presuming somebody's going to shoot at you, because if somebody starts shooting and you have a gun, you're the primary target. Now, this definitely is a situation where you need to be a trained police officer in order to make those hairpin judgments. So we do have to recognize that it does take a lot of training in order to make those split-second decisions correctly. You do not want to be thrown in jail for murder if you accidentally shoot the wrong person. So we need to be smart about when we are organizing 2A movements at these protests, that we are able to keep people safe and from getting shot. But I am out of time. Thank you very much for watching Real Simple News with Coffee on Sunday, July 26th. Again, I am your host, Cale McCullough, captain of the Kabuki Starship, reading you really simple syndication news articles. That's RSS news articles from the intellectual dark web. And the reason why I'm on the intellectual dark web is because I was canceled. I was in engineering school, and one day I realized I had helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protests. And then I realized I had been a feminist my whole life, and I'd known these people for like some of them up to a decade. And even though I had never done anything wrong, if I started criticizing feminism, I knew that they would not be my friends anymore. And so I started posting meninist jokes, and lo and behold, people started flipping out on me, even though I was just joking. Obviously, some of the stuff that I was posting was just obviously, it was just like bonkers. It was just meant to be funny. It was just not meant to be serious in any way, shape, or form. But people can't tell the difference in between you being serious and you joking when it's in text form. And they also they also can't tell the difference in between whether or not you support something or whether or not you condone or you condemn something just because you're talking about it. So they think just because you're talking about it, that like if you talk about Nazism, they'll think you're a Nazi. Or they think if you're talking about misogyny, that you must be a misogynist. This is the mentality that is going through their heads and why they are so batshit crazy right now. So I'm writing a book about this. It's called BLM Antifa Nazi Riot. It's the story of how I helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest and how I was canceled and how this affected my company, Kabuki Starship. I'm working on a open source starship along with the world's most efficient water heater and heat pump. Should be in almost every single house in the world at some point in time. It gives you free hot water. And you can heat your house with groundwater. And so, hey, I got a plug. Because this show is funded by open source, I was supposed to be doing this. Remember to like and subscribe. Go to YouTube, go to Real Simple News, and like and subscribe. And then there's cookingwithkale.org. /projects, and the website's really out of date right now. I'm sorry. I've got it updated where all the links were. Go to GitHub. The links are broken. Go to GitHub. You can download the books. You can download the description. I don't have too much work. Don't expect everything to be done. I'm trying to plug for funds and doing this show so that we can get contributors so that we can get it done. But we have a lot of really, really cool, innovative open source technologies. I even have Chinese room memory augmentation technology that is open. Oh, shoot. Am I just sitting here? Oh, man. I was just yapping. Go to cookingwithkale.org /projects, and you can make a donation to one of the projects here by clicking on the donate button. And then it'll, you can make a donation to one of the cookbooks, to Kabuki Starship. Well, it's actually A Star Startup. And then there's no dash in the organ cooler. But anyways, thank you. Thank you very much for watching Real Simple News with Coffee. And I'm looking for people to come. If you want to come be a guest on Real Simple News with Coffee, then you can come in via a webcast, or you can come in and we've actually got 2 chairs. We got cameras for you. I'm all set up. Now we got the pimp set up now with this badass table. I mean, this thing's so cool. I love it. And the mics are good. The video's really good quality. The lighting's good. So anyways, thank you for watching today. And as I say every time, farewell, sayonara, aloha, peace be with you, and Godspeed in your journeys.